Good evening, fourth graders. How is everybody on this rainy Friday? Sorry that my video is coming to you so late tonight, but it's been a long day, and we just put James down for bed, so I thought this would be the perfect time. I want to say thank you to those of you who have already done the Google scavenger hunt on our classroom. I'm super proud of you, and I appreciate you taking the time to do that, knowing that I posted it today. Those of you that might have not even looked at it yet, you need to go ahead and hop on and start working on that. I've also posted a video on there that's going to show you how to navigate through the Google Classroom if you're confused with some of the scavenger hunt parts. So I want you to go ahead and look at that. It is open till Sunday. Your assignments won't always be open this long, but since it's our first one, I figured I would go ahead and give you some extra time. So make sure you check that out, okay? Let's pick back up in our book in the Chamber of Secrets. So when we left off, Harry and Ron were trying to go down into the Chamber of Secrets because the heir of Slytherin had taken a human, and it happened to be Ginny Weasley. They went to Gilderoy Lockhart for help, and he was actually leaving because he admitted that he didn't really do anything that he wrote in his books, that he lied about all of that, and that he's actually done memory charms on people to take their stories and then make them forget them. So Harry and Ron are not going to let him get away with that, so they're actually making him go down into the chamber with them. So here we go. They marched Lockhart out of his office and down the nearest stairs, along the dark corridor where the messages shone on the wall to the door of Moaning Myrtle's bathroom. They sent Lockhart in first. Harry was pleased to see that he was shaking. Moaning Myrtle was sitting on the tank of the end toilet. "Oh, it's you," she said when she saw Harry. "What do you want this time?" "To ask you how you died," said Harry. Myrtle's whole aspect changed at once. She looked as though she had never been asked such a flattering question. "Oh, it was dreadful," she said with relish. "It happened right here. I died in this very stall. I remember it so well. I'd hidden because Olive Hornby was teasing me about my glasses. The door was locked and I was crying, and then I heard somebody come in. They said something funny, a different language, I think it must have been. Anyway, what really got me was that it was a boy speaking. So I unlocked the door to tell him to go and use his own toilet, and then," Myrtle swelled importantly, her face shining, "I died." "How?" said Harry. "No idea," said Myrtle in hushed tones. "I just remember seeing a pair of great big yellow eyes. My whole body sort of seized up, and then I was floating away." She looked dreamily at Harry. "And then I came back again. I was determined to haunt Olive Hornby, you see. Oh, she was sorry she'd ever laughed at my glasses." "Where exactly did you see the eyes?" said Harry. "Somewhere there," said Myrtle, pointing vaguely toward the sink in front of her toilet. Harry and Ron hurried over to it. Lockhart was standing well back, a look of utter terror on his face. It looked like an ordinary sink. They examined every inch of it, inside and out, including the pipes below. And then Harry saw it. Scratched on the side of one was the copper tabs with a tiny snake. "The taps never work," said Myrtle brightly as he tried to turn it. "Harry," said Ron, say something in Parseltongue." But Harry thought hard. The only times he'd ever managed to speak Parseltongue were when he'd been faced with a real snake. He stared hard at the tiny engraving, trying to imagine it was real. "Open up," he said. He looked at Ron, who shook his head. "English," he said. Harry looked back at the snake, willing himself to believe it was alive. If he moved his head, the candlelight made it look as though it were moving. "Open up," he said. Except the words weren't what he heard. A strange hissing had escaped him, and at once the tap glowed with a brilliant white light and began to spin. Next second, the sink began to move. The sink, in fact, sank right out of sight, leaving a large pipe exposed, a pipe wide enough for a man to slide into. Harry heard Ron gasp and looked up again. He had made up his mind what he was going to do. "I'm going down there," he said. He couldn't not go, not now that they had found the entrance to the chamber, not if there was ever the faintest, slimmest, wildest chance that Ginny might be alive. "Me too," said Ron. There was a pause. "Well, you hardly seem to need me," said Lockhart with a shadow of his old smile. He put his hand on the doorknob, but Ron and Harry both pointed their wands at him. You can go first, Ron snarled. White-faced and wandless, Lockhart approached the opening. Boys, he said, his voice feeble. Boys, what good will it do? Harry jabbed him in the back with his wand. Lockhart slid his legs into the pipe. I really don't think, he started to say, but Ron gave him a push and he slid out of sight. Harry followed quickly. He lowered himself slowly into the pipe, then let go. It was like rushing down an endless, slimy, dark slide. He could see more pipes branching off in all directions, but none as large as theirs, which twisted and turned, sloping steeply downward, and he knew that he was falling deeper below the school than even the dungeons. Behind him, he could hear Ron thudding slightly at the curves. And then, just as he had begun to worry about what would happen when he hit the ground, the pipe leveled out and he shot out of the end with a wet thud, landing on the damp floor of a dark stone tunnel large enough to stand in. Lockhart was getting to his feet a little ways away, covered in slime and white as a ghost. Harry stood aside as Ron came whizzing out of the pipe. We must be miles under the school, said Harry, his voice echoing in the black tunnel. Under the lake, probably, said Ron, squinting around at the dark, slimy walls. All three of them turned to stare into the darkness ahead. Loomis, Harry muttered to his wand, and it lit again. Come on, he said to Ron and Lockhart, and off they went, their footsteps slapping loudly on the wet floor. The tunnel was so dark that they could see only a little distance ahead. Their shadows on the wet walls looked monstrous in wan light. Remember, Harry said quietly as they walked cautiously forward, any sign of movement, close your eyes right away. But the tunnel was quiet as the grave, and the first unexpected sound they heard was a loud crunch as Ron stepped on what turned out to be a rat's skull. Harry lowered his wand to look at the floor and saw that it was littered with small animal bones. Trying very hard not to imagine what Ginny might look like if they found her, Harry led the way forward around a dark bend in the tunnel. Harry, there's something up there, said Ron hoarsely, grabbing Harry's shoulder. They froze, watching. Harry could see the outlines of something huge and curved lying right across the tunnel. It wasn't moving. Maybe it's asleep, he breathed, glancing back at the other two. Lockhart's hands were pressed over his eyes. Harry turned back to look at the thing. His heart began beating so fast it hurt. Very slowly, his eyes as narrow as he could make them and still see, Harry edged forward, his wand held high. The light slid over a gigantic snake skin of a vivid, poisonous green, lying curled and empty across the tunnel floor. The creature that had shed it must have been 20 feet long at least. Blimey, said Ron weakly. There was a sudden movement behind them. Gilderoy Lockhart's knees had given away. Get up, said Ron sharply, pointing his wand at Lockhart. Lockhart got to his feet, and then he dived at Ron, knocking him to the ground. Harry jumped forward, but it was too late. Lockhart was straightening up, panting, Ron's wand in his hand and a gleaming smile back on his face. The adventure ends here, boys, he said. I shall take a bit of this skin back up to the school, tell them I was too late to save the girl, and that you two tragically lost your minds at the sight of her mangled body. Say goodbye to your memories. He raised Ron's spell-taped wand high over his head and yelled, Obliviate! The wand exploded with the force of a small bomb. Harry flung his arms over his head and ran, slipping over the coils of the snake skin out of the way of the great chunks of tunnel ceiling that were thundering to the floor. Next moment, he was standing alone, gazing at the solid wall of broken rock. Ron, he shouted. Are you okay? Ron! I'm here, came Ron's muffled voice from behind the rock fall. I'm okay. This Git's not, though. He's got blasted by the wand. There was a dull thud and a loud ow. It sounded as though Ron had just kicked Lockhart in the shins. What now? Ron's voice said, sounding desperate. We can't get through. It'll take ages. Harry looked up at the tunnel ceiling. Huge cracks had appeared in it. He had never tried to break apart anything as large as these rocks by magic, and now didn't seem a good moment to try. What if the whole tunnel caved in? There was another thud and ow from behind the rocks. They were wasting time. Ginny had already been in the Chamber of Secrets for hours. Harry knew there was only one thing to do. Wait there, he called to Ron. Wait with Lockhart. I'll go on, and if I'm not back in an hour. There was a very pregnant pause. I'll try and shift some of the rocks, said Ron, who seemed to be trying to keep his voice steady, so you can get back through. And Harry? See you in a bit, said Harry, trying to inject some confidence into his shaking voice. And he set off alone past the giant snakeskin. Soon the distant noise of Ron straining to shift the rocks was gone. The tunnel turned and turned again. Every nerve in Harry's body was tingling unpleasantly. He wanted the tunnel to end, yet dreaded what he'd find when it did. And then at last, as he crept around yet another bend, he saw a solid wall ahead, on which 2 entwined serpents were carved, their eyes set with green glinting emeralds. Harry approached, his throat very dry. There was no need to pretend these stone snakes were real. Their eyes looked strangely alive. He could guess what he had to do. He cleared his throat, and the emerald eyes seemed to flicker. "Open," said Harry in a low, faint hiss. The serpents parted as the walls cracked open. The halves slid smoothly out of sight, and Harry, shaking from head to foot, walked inside. So we are going to stop there. That is the end of chapter 16. Chapter 17 is our next chapter. We are 2 chapters away from being done. So remember, guys, if you have not done the scavenger hunt yet, please do so before the weekend's up. It closes on Sunday, okay? I need those Mastery Connect passwords changed. I need you to play around with some of the stuff in the materials folder to make sure it works on your computer or device, and I just want you to get ready because starting Monday we're going to hit the ground running, okay? I'm not going to be reading this weekend. It's the weekend, so I'm going to take some time off from school. If you do email me with questions over the weekend, if I don't get back to you right away, it's because it's the weekend, okay? I hope you guys have a great night and a great weekend. I miss you all, and I hope to see you soon.